Alright, so welcome back everybody. So for this video, I'm going to be talking about the changes that the new expansion Marine Worlds makes to Ark Nova. Obviously there's some changes, some new concepts to think about, so we're going to be talking about most of them in this video. So let's start with one of the icons in the game. Now, some of the new, well actually all of the new marine animals have an icon on them, a wave icon right here on the bottom of the card. Now the wave icon has no effect when you play it. It also has no effect when it goes into your hand and all that stuff. So when do these wave icons come into play? What is their purpose? Well, first of all, when you set up the game, obviously you're going to have a bunch of cards in the display. And, you know, we've got a secretary bird here, for instance. And we've got some sponsor cards here. And there's a monkey over here, for instance. And then, of course, we've got this shark-nosed goby. Now, when you set up the game, you ignore the wave icon that is here. So if you set up the game and you get one of these marine animals that have a wave icon on them, obviously, because they all do, then you'll ignore it for the setup. It doesn't have anything to do with the setup, but it does have to do with a coffee break. So whenever you take a coffee break, whenever that happens, what do you usually do in a coffee break? Well, you discard the bottom two cards of the display, right? And then you slide everything over, right? That's what you normally do in a coffee break. And then, of course, you draw new cards. So let's draw a new card. Oh, and look, the first card we draw. It's an African penguin. Okay, so now we drew that, and we still need to draw one more, so we'll draw the next card. It's an animal from the base game, so nothing new there. But now that we've basically drawn this from the deck for the coffee break, or whenever you happen to need to obviously refresh the display of cards here by sliding things down and obviously drawing cards for the display, whenever you draw a card with a wave symbol on it, then what's going to happen is it's going to cause the card that's furthest down to be discarded. So now, Native Seabirds gets discarded. Never really liked that card anyway, so hey, that works out well. It wasn't going to help me at all, at least not for my zoo. So then you slide everything down again, and you draw another card. Oh, look, we just drew another card that has a wave symbol. Look, this is a sponsor card. Now, not all of the new sponsor cards have wave symbols on them, but some of them do. So if you happen to draw another wave symbol, guess what happens? You discard the bottom card. Oh, so now this gets discarded, and now this will slide down, and these will all slide down, and I'll draw again. And you'll keep doing it until you stop getting waves. Oh, look, we got another wave here. So that means that this goby is now discarded. And the secretary bird is there. The African penguin is there. And that sawfish was there. And we finally got a card that was drawn that doesn't have a wave symbol. The Tasmanian devil scared the waves off with its ferocious, well, bite. So that's how the wave icons will work. They only affect the display. They only help you they only help you basically go through your deck of cards faster. So some people complained that they would never see every single card in the game. Now, of course, this is not all of them, but they would complain that they would never see every card in the game. Or maybe they're looking for a certain animal and they can't find that certain animal, like a certain species of monkey, or they're just trying to find a monkey, or they're just trying to find a reptile, but they can't find them. Well, this will help you go through the cards faster and help you find those animals that you're looking for. So that will certainly help things, for sure, when you happen to do that. Get a wave icon. Now, there is another way to help you search for certain animals. So that's why we'll talk about the Science Institutes right now. So now, we get this board here, which comes with the Marine Worlds expansion, which gives us a spot to put a new Science Institute, this thing here. Now, you'll notice right away, if you look at the others in comparison, this one is grayed out. This one isn't. Meaning, whenever you go to take this Science Institute, you're actually not going to take it. You're just simply going to, like, move it aside, because it's just like any of the other Science Institutes. When you take one for that round, nobody else can take one of the same thing for that round until everything gets refreshed in a coffee break. But when you take this Science Institute off, then you're going to have a bunch of different options. But if it's the first time that happens, definitely several. So maybe you'll go for this one. Or maybe you'll go for this one. Or the one with the primates on it. Or the one with the herbivores on it. Or the one with the birds on it. Or, my personal favorite, the one with the reptiles on it. Now, if I was to take this Science Institute, which has 3 different things you'll notice on it. It's got a reptile icon on it and a science icon on it. So yes, it's still going to give you science, which, you know, some animals need to be played with. You need to have a science icon, so that might help there. But it gives you a reptile icon, meaning that it counts as a reptile icon. So if you're if you need something that requires another reptile icon, maybe, I don't know, one of the sponsor cards, or maybe one of the conservation cards, for instance, that requires another reptile icon to really get things moving along, this will obviously help towards that. Obviously, some reptiles require reptile icons to be played. Some of those bigger reptiles, you know, require, obviously, you already have some reptiles in your zoo, right? But then it does something else. You'll notice it has a little magnifying glass in the middle there on the bottom. That magnifying glass will now allow me to search that deck until I find a reptile card. So let's do that. Let's see if I can find a reptile. I draw a card. Oh, it's a sand tiger shark. Bummer. That's not a reptile. Oh, and look, now we've got the boa constrictor right there. So I have to discard everything I draw up to the reptile I find. Thankfully, I didn't have to discard too many cards, but it does guarantee you get one reptile for sure. It might not be the reptile you want, but it gives you a reptile for sure for this icon. If you were looking for primates, then you would draw until you obviously found a primate, or, you know, obviously an animal with the primate icon on it, right? And so everything else that you discover will then, hold on. Let me just double check that in the rules. I'm pretty sure they get discarded, but I thought I read somewhere that's not the case. Let me look that up. I am sorry. I just want to make sure I have my facts correct. Oh, so, let's see. And then, oh yeah, so, okay. So, no, they don't get discarded. So the cards that were drawn from this, okay, they don't get discarded. They just get tucked away, you know, underneath the deck, or tucked away. Revealed cards just get tucked away. Let me double check that. Maybe it's the bottom, or maybe they're just put back, you know, in a particular order without changing their order. So they're just, you just took all the other revealed cards under the deck. So, yep, without changing their order. So you just, I would just put this right back underneath the deck, okay? So that means it might show up again, maybe. Well, with all these cards, probably not, right? But still, it's not discarded, at least. So who knows? But yes, that's what would happen, and I would get my reptile. So that's how these will work. Now, once this is gone, that means nobody else can have this. I'm the only one that's going to have this in my zoo. That means if somebody else was going the reptiles route, well, that isn't going to help them. I beat them to the punch. So this might, this might be something you want to go for the first round. I mean, most often that is the case. Some people will go for, obviously, a bigger hand limit the first round, or maybe one of these the first round. but this might be something you go for the first round. It gives you something else that you will most likely want to go for as early as possible. So that just gives us something else to go for. And because now there's 4 of them, that means we will never be able to have all of them, right? Because we had 3 originally, so we could have all 3, obviously. And that does mean that that you can only have 1 of these. So once you take this, and I take this, that means I can't have any of these in my zoo unless there's a card that says otherwise. And there might just be a card that lets you do that anyways. But that's something to talk about in a future video. But yes, the general rule is no. The general rule is no, you can't have more of these awesome tiles, or should I say awesome science institutes, in your zoo. So that will most likely still give other players something else to go for. You know, there's lots of other icons out there, people. I mean, I'm not the only one out there that likes reptiles, but seriously, there's a whole lot more animals to see for sure. So that's how those are going to work. Now, we've talked about 2 of the things in this game, but there's still some more things. So let's talk about the new aquarium tiles next. So I might have said this during the unboxing video, but I didn't know for sure. When you build these, your building card does not need to be upgraded to 2, okay? That means I can build this, even though my build action is still blue. That means I can still build this, even though my build action is still blue. You do not need to upgrade your build action to build these. And you can build both of these. But obviously, you can only build 1 of these and only 1 of these, okay? So that's that. Now, it's a little wonky, but imagine if they were right next to each other like this. And one of the animals required you to, required like 3 more cubes, and you only had maybe 2 slots available left here in this big aquarium, and it just wasn't big enough for that animal that required 3 cubes or 3 spaces in your large aquarium. Well, imagine if these were next to each other, even though they don't have to be, you can add those other cubes to this one. So, for instance, it's not thematic if they were separated. It's not very thematic that you'd have half of the animal over here and the other half here. That's not thematic, but you can do that. So that's an option. So you might find yourself putting these next to each other just because you don't like the idea of, you know, having half of your manta ray on that side of the zoo and physically your other half of the manta ray on that side of the zoo. It just seems wrong in so many ways, even though that's something you can actually do in the game. So that's something to think about. You might want to put these together if that's something that bugs you. And yes, that bothers me a lot. So that's something to note with these, okay? Now, these have to be placed next to at least 1 water. There has to be a water on your board. They have to be placed next to them. They just have to. You have to make sure that they are. So that's something, right? They always have to be placed next to water. And of course, some of these sea life animals that will go into your aquariums, they have to be next to rock and water. So if you're going to put one of those animals in here, it has to be next to rock and water. So it'd have to be somewhere like here, for instance, because that's next to rock and water, right? So something like that, that's going to have to be the case. But that's how those work, okay? Now, we also get new bonus tiles. So when you start getting your conservation points, you'll eventually reach these locations, and these areas will have bonus tiles that are always random in the game, like normal. But now we've got new ones that we can play with, that we can potentially have in our game, that only one of us will get, right? Because that's how it's always been. So if you get this one, it means you get to draw 3 of those end game scoring cards, but then you have to discard 3 right after you do that. So it's actually an ability called Adapt. One of the animals have it. So it doesn't exactly give you new final scoring cards, but it does help you adapt to the situation. Maybe the final scoring cards you currently have, which you haven't been discarded yet because no one's reached this point yet, you might find yourself, you know, mixing and matching some of the cards, obviously, because you don't have to, you're obviously not going to, you're not entitled to discard the same cards that you just drew, because then that would be pointless, right? So that's something you can do with that. This is probably my favorite one here. It lets you perform the snapping action right away, but then it increases your hand size limit by 1. Now that means if you never got this one, your hand size limit would normally be 3. But if you acquired this, your hand size limit is 4. And I did that. I never got this in my solo game when I last played this. I didn't get this. I didn't waste an action getting it because I thought 4 would be enough, and it was, and it worked out well for me. 4 hand limit was awesome. But if you do have this in your, if you do have this in your zoo, then your hand limit is now 6 if you have this. Even better. So this one is phenomenal. Probably the best one there is, for sure. But yeah, that's another one you could potentially get. This is a good one too, depending on certain animals. This one will allow you to ignore 3 conditions when you play an animal card, meaning that this is something you can hold on to and use it later at your leisure. Once you do use it, you flip it over, knowing that you've already used it and can't use it again. But, you know, you can save it for that giant panda you've always wanted to put into your zoo. There you go. Okay, this one just gives you, of your choice, 3 pavilions or kiosks, mix and match, and you get to put them into your zoo right away. That's what that does. Simple, easy, something you may or may not go for. Okay? This one's interesting. This one gives you an icon of your choice. It's a one-time use, so you'll flip it over when you use it, but you can use it for when you're trying to get that conservation card scored. You know, you need a certain icon. You've been having a hard time finding those reptiles. You want to do the conservation card for the reptiles, but you just need that one more so you can get the full amount of conservation points. But you just need one more reptile icon, and you just can't seem to find any reptiles. If this was in the game and you took this from over there when you got your cylinder, your marker up to that point, then you could use that for this and say, hey, I'm going to use this as a reptile icon so I can take this association action so I can support this conservation project and get myself 5 conservation points, something like that. That's what this is for. So that's pretty useful. Pretty useful. And then this one. Now, obviously, it has an association worker on it. So you're probably thinking right away that it means that you get to take one of these off and put it onto your notepad. No, that is not what that means. Okay, so those stay there. This is what it's going to do. Let's say your association worker is at work and he's on the association board. What it's going to let you do is if you take this token, and this is something you can hold on to, by the way, so you don't have to use it right away. But when you use it, you can just take your association worker from the association board to the notepad. It's an extra shift. It's an ability in this game called extra shift, and this isn't the only thing that does that. So that's what you get to do with this particular bonus token, is you basically are going to get to use your association worker again. It might be one of those long first rounds, or one of those long rounds, and you're thinking, oh, I don't have an association worker, but my association action is on 5. What am I going to do? It's going to be a while before we go into the next break. Do I really want to wait that long? Ooh, wait a minute. This bonus tile, it's over there. I just need 1 conservation point more. Do I have anything that I can do to give me 1? Oh, yes, I do. I can play this animal. It'll give me 1 conservation point. Yes. Now I can get this, and ooh, now I can take this off, and voila. I can get my guy back, and then I'd be like, oh, yay, I get to do another association action. I did it last time, so I'm going to do this. So that's basically what that does. Remember, you can hold on to this and use it when you need to. And then when you use it, you flip it over to indicate you used it. Cool, right? So those are the bonus tiles and how those bonus tiles work. Now, that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about in this particular video. I'm going to do the card actions. So these actions here, so let's talk about them real quick. So during the setup, normally you will draw your 5, normally in a normal base game of Ark Nova, you're going to draw your normal 5 action cards, okay? That's what you're going to do normally. However, in this game, before you do that, you're actually going to draw 3 of these, or let's say a few people were playing the game. You're going to shuffle them, obviously, and then deal out 3 to each player, okay? Then each of those players are going to be looking at these, and they're going to be deciding which ones do they want to take. Now, they could all be the same, but they could be a bit of a mix and a match too. Who knows what they could have, right? They're going to choose their favorite, and then they're going to take it, and then they're going to pass it to the player to their left. And then the player to my obviously right is going to hand me 2 cards. Oh, thank you. Now what do I want to choose? Obviously, I can't choose an action card I already have. I chose cards earlier, so I must choose animals. Okay? Now, if you somehow got 2 of the same, if the 2 cards handed to you were exactly the same, then you can just draw another one from here, and that one will have to be the case. Unless it's also cards, you know, then you've got a problem. And eventually, though, you'll draw a card. It won't be obviously the same, but it'll have to be the one you take. In a solo game, you're going to draw 3 cards, and then you're going to choose 2 to keep. Okay? And if they are all cards, obviously you can't take them all, so you're going to take just the one, and then you're going to draw and have to play that, basically. But that's the setup. You only get 2 of these special, extra, better action cards in the game. Only 2, and everyone's going to have 2 different. Somebody might have a card's action that's special. You might have a card's action that's special, but they're 2 completely different card actions. They're going to be 2 completely different ones, for instance. And so everyone's going to have something different, for sure. 2 cards completely different from the others. And, you know, so that's how that's going to work. But they'll talk about how these actually function in a separate video. So we'll talk about these in a separate video, and we'll talk about the new animal cards in a separate video as well. So thank you guys for watching this, basically how to play this expansion video. If you guys liked it, don't forget to leave me a like and subscribe, please. And I'll see you guys in the next video.